How important is the introduction? Why do we do it? How is it done? Fellow Toastmasters, our speaker tonight has a passion for what he does at Toastmasters. Since joining 2 years ago, he has enjoyed many roles in the club level, and now he wants to dig deeper into each role. This speech will start the journey, and along the way, he hopes we all will benefit. One of his most favorite mantras from Rick Burbage is, "If it ain't fun, it ain't Toastmasters." Please help me welcome Jim Gagliardi, who will share his research on introducing a speaker.
Here's Johnny. Don't we all know what that was? 20 years Ed McMahon would introduce who else but Johnny Carson. Did Johnny Carson need an introduction? No. But the introduction is important. It's important for all of us because it creates something that Johnny Carson, who he was, just before the commercial or just before the entertainer that took place. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, when was the last time that you introduced someone? And do you wish that you could have done a better job of it? Recent true story. I mean very recent. I'm sitting at my desk. I have 2 or 3 different pieces of paper out, all telling me what a good introduction would be. And I've got my browser up with 2 or 3 websites, how to introduce a speaker. I've got all this information, and I'm thinking to myself, I've got so much information. How am I going to pull this all together? And then all of a sudden, right on my email, I get an email from Clark. And this is what it says. Please forward an introduction for your speech tomorrow, or just bring one. I'm the Toastmaster. I go, oh my God, I'm preparing a speech for you about introductions, and I haven't even done my introduction for him. This is the perfect metaphor for what I'm trying to communicate to you today. The introduction is important, but many of us forget about it. Many of us brush it off or do it at the end. Often in meetings, and I know you all have been there before, we're listening to the introduction that's just dry and lineal and boring. Lineal and boring. And we say to ourselves, why even introduce the speaker? Just let him talk. Well, we need to know that it's important to do an introduction. And here's why. If Clark didn't introduce me, he would just go, and here's Jim Gagliardi. You wouldn't have any idea why I'm coming up here, would you? The speaker needs to separate himself from the listeners. Meaning that you just heard a speech from Jim on scuba. Your mind was out at John Penny Camp, and down in the Caribbean, and last over in Australia at the Great Barrier Reef. That introduction is supposed to clean the palate and move you from the Great Barrier Reef into my speech. And that's one of the main points of separation. The listener also needs to know what my purpose is. Why am I up here? What is my topic? And then there might be some special things, such as an expertise that I bring to the table, or experience. And last, the introduction builds a bridge from you to me. And that bridge is you're looking and anticipating, what is my speech going to be? So why do we do it? And just not introduce somebody, but why do we introduce somebody? It's because we want to separate that speaker with significance. State the goal. Tell the speaker's expertise or authority, and then build that bridge between the audience and me, the speaker. What about the speaker's obligation? What should he or she do? You know, we do have an obligation. And I think the number one obligation that we all have to is we have to write our own introduction the way we want it. If we don't do that, we leave it up to the Toastmaster, who may or may not know you, or me, or what we're talking about. So we want to contribute information in that introduction that makes the speech come alive. We don't want to claim that we're brilliant, or successful, or a good speaker, or intelligent. And we want to stay light on the data. I'm sure you've all heard the introductions. And he was born in 52, and he moved here in 58. That's that dull, dry, lineal introduction. So as an introducer, what are you looking for? Well, you're looking for the 3 P's. The first one is preparation. An introducer needs to prepare and treat his job seriously. Talk to the speaker before you introduce him. Get a printed copy, and if possible, get an electronic copy. Because if Clark has an electronic copy, he can then highlight the things that I put down in the introduction and use that as his prompt. Read it out loud several times before you get up here. Increase the size of the print if you need to. And most of all, be able to pronounce the name of the person that you're introducing. Pretty important. The second P, purpose. Think of TIS, T-I-S. You want to make sure that your introduction has a topic, that it has importance in it, meaning that you know in that bridge that I build that there's importance to this speech coming up, to get your focus away from the Great Barrier Reef and into the next speech. And then the speaker, let's know a little bit about him. We seem to be good at that, where they were, what they've done. The third P is perform. Now here's where the introducer is actually giving a speech. Do you remember back in Competent Communicator Manual, Project 2? You don't. Well, it was how to design a speech, and all speeches start with an opening, a body, and a closing. And that's the same is true for your introduction. So you're performing. Get up in front of the audience. Stand and use the pause. Get everybody's attention first. And with the pause, look at the audience and proudly state your name and your goal to introduce the next speaker. You're not there to entertain or tell jokes. Read the introduction, which you have practiced, and close your introduction with a flair, something like this. And now to speak to us on being even more creative, pause. Please welcome, pause, Albert Einstein. You see, the second name should be more emphasized than the first name. And it just creates that bridge between you, the audience, and the speaker who's to get up. Look at the speaker after you say that, and with a kind gesture, bring that speaker into your realm. Bring that speaker out here to the audience. That's your job. So the next time you have the honor to introduce somebody, just look in the mirror before you come here and say, "Here's Johnny."